Good morning and welcome to TAPP Talk Live. This will be number 37 that we're doing today, this morning on Monday, and we are live from Monday to Friday. And today we are talking about the life cycle of a plastic bottle. Because we tend to use plastic bottles and just throw them away, or use them and try and recycle them, but we never think of all the work that goes into making, distributing and producing a plastic bottle, and who is gaining out of that. And today we're going to have a look at that. So we're live here on TAPP Talk from Monday to Friday at 10 a.m. And you're invited to put your comments and questions at any time during the chat. We normally pick a subject, but we can do a demonstration of a product if you'd like, or answer any questions. All you have to do is add your comments or questions into the chat box, either on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and we'll get to them. And also, you can look at our webpage, tapwater.mt/live, and you'll get all the other pre-recordings, all the other recordings of all the other subjects we've covered. And also, you can fill in a form and ask questions. So let's get straight into it. The life cycle of a plastic bottle. Now, I've called this an inconvenient truth because we are sold on the idea that plastic bottles are going to be really convenient and useful to us. But really, the carbon footprint of a plastic bottle, and therefore hence the damage to the environment, is huge. Every single 2-litre bottle is something like 331 grams of carbon footprint, of carbon emissions, which you could so easily avoid by not using a simple plastic bottle. So this is a scientific piece of evidence, and all of the things that I present you today are all things from that are readily available on the internet. It is some facts that I picked up to try and put a picture of this inconvenient truth of just what it takes to produce a plastic bottle. Now, plastic bottles, we tend to forget sometimes, are made from oil. Okay, there is a whole process that goes through from chemical bonding to make one molecule and then a chain of molecules in order to make plastic that's has plasticity, so it's flexible in plastic bottles. So what's interesting is that as we talk about decarbonising our planet and we use less fuel in vehicles and transport and heating and electricity production, etc., etc., etc. At the same time as we're trying to do that, the oil companies are actually ploughing money into fossil-fueled plastic production at an increased rate, because the oil companies can see that if we use more plastic but we use less fuel in our vehicles and heating, electricity and such like things, then, well, at least we'll be buying more oil or buying the same amount of oil. So plastics are almost like a plan B for the oil companies so that they can still carry on selling you something. And let's remember, the idea of the convenience of the plastic bottle is so that you buy water that is worth about 1 cent or something, or 2 cents in your 2-litre plastic bottle. You buy that for 50 cents, and all the other 50 cents is going to this whole production system to produce the plastic bottle and ship it to you. And also you're paying for all those carbon emissions, which are not good for the planet. So what we're looking to produce is these plastic pellets. And we make plastic bottles out of plastic pellets, but first we have to produce the pellets, and that obviously comes from oil and then the whole process. Now, there's a problem with these plastic pellets. These plastic pellets are being shipped all around the world. Just like oil is shipped all around the world, plastic pellets are also shipped all around the world. And it's interesting because this evidence from, which was actually originally from Greenpeace, you can see the article down there, all sorts of things. 10 trillion plastic pellets the size of lentils are thrown into the environment every single year, enough to make 15 million plastic bottles, and that is just through the transportation of them. So it's not just the CO2 emissions that you've got on a plastic bottle, it's also this huge amount of pollution that goes in the whole chain of production and transport and shipping that goes on in producing a plastic bottle. And it's not something you may think about when you just open a plastic bottle to drink water with or something like that. But this is all behind that plastic bottle that you use and then discard. What about the machinery to make it? Well, there's more heat and energy in what's known as the blow molding process. So basically you heat up these pellets and then you blow air through them in order to shape them inside a mold into a plastic bottle. So it's a whole extra bit of CO2 emissions that are going into this whole production process. Then you have the bottling plant. So once you've made the plastic bottle out of the oil and made the pellets, then blown it into a plastic bottle, then you need to fill it with something. So you get your big plastic bottle of 2 litres and you fill it up with water, mostly from the tap after it's been filtered. So what you're filling it up with in most bottling places, and certainly what we see in Malta for our non-carbonated drinking water in plastic bottles, we're seeing tap water that has been put through a filtration process. And the bottling plants are producing something like 7,000 bottles of water an hour. And that's a load of CO2 emissions, electricity being used and all sorts of stuff, and this plant running all the time. Then what happens? Well, we load it, we ship it and transport it. Now, we've all seen in Malta stacks of plastic bottles outside shops in the heat. And in fact, here's an interesting report from CBS. After the storms in Puerto Rico, they left bottled water that had been shipped out ready to be used in emergency situations. They just left it there sitting on a runway. I mean, millions of plastic bottles. It's a hell of a story. And I think it was up to a year that they had left them there. So it's just an example. It's quite common. Oh, the water's in plastic bottles. Well, let's just leave it lying around in a warehouse outside or whatever. Quite normal. And we know that's the case in Malta because we've seen it. We've seen it in the shops. So in a way, that's enough to put you off. And all of this is done so that you can pick up your plastic bottle of water and drink it and then throw your plastic bottle away. Now, obviously, we've got some, you might want to recycle it. And the recycling is interesting because the myth is that if you recycle it, then it's okay, it's good. But that's not really the case. First of all, when you recycle it, we ship it off somewhere else in Malta. We don't process it here, or there's very little production of processing of we ship it to somewhere else, preferably where they haven't got so many regulations on what to do with them. And really, is it really that convenient? I mean, what you could do is just turn the tap on with something like this and then drink the water out of the tap, and you wouldn't have to carry all of those plastic bottles or anything like that. So recycling is one of the things that we have after use. And here's a little bit of an article of what kind of things are found in the recycling bags in Malta. So there are dead animals, toys of all sorts of nature, soiled clothing, used syringes, expired flares, broken toasters, kettles and radios, all sorts of things that are thrown in the recycling bin. And what happens is with this recycling is that someone has to go through this and try and make sense of what's in there and take out the stuff that can be sent for reprocessing in another country, like plastic bottles. So there's more CO2 used just in the recycling process. There's more hassle, there's transport, it has to be picked up, it has to be taken somewhere. So you've got all of that as part of the story of a plastic bottle that we so easily drink and discard. So in Malta coming up, we've got the Beverage container recycling scheme. You've probably seen the machines start to appear at the supermarkets, and that is going to mean that a plastic bottle with any kind of drink in, as well as cans and bottles, they are going to have an extra 10 cents on them, and you won't get that 10 cents back if you pop it in the recycling. You will only get that 10 cents back if you take it all the way back to the machine. Now, this is no doubt of benefit. to the whole of our environment and the system. It's definitely of benefit because we'll see less plastic bottles just discarded on the roadside because people have an incentive to take them back to the machines. But when we look at this in the context of CO2 emissions and things like that, once you've got your plastic bottle, you've drunk from it, you then put it back in your car and then you take it somewhere else and you put it in one of these machines. So what this is doing is adding another layer of transportation and hassle and inconvenience onto the already inconvenient and fully transported plastic bottle. So you've had it dug up somewhere as oil, you've had it made somewhere into pellets, the pellets have been shipped somewhere and they've been made into bottles, the bottles have been shipped somewhere and they've been filled up with water. The water in bottles has then been shipped somewhere else and left in a warehouse. Then it's been shipped to the shop. Then you've bought it and you've shipped it back to your home in your car. And now you have to bring the bottle back and ship it back to the recycling centre, to the beverage container recycling scheme. So, nice spelling mistake there. So you get your 10 cents back. Amazing, really, when you think. All this effort just to buy 1 cent of water for 50 cents. And get your deposit back, obviously. So what happens when we do recycle it? Well, even this stuff that's going into the beverage container recycling scheme, and I'm talking about the plastics here, the PET, clear bottle scrap. Here's just an offer for sale from a recycling website that I picked up. Here is our waste collection service that are quite legitimately selling on the plastic bottles in order for them to be exported to another country where they can be reprocessed or whatever happens to them in other countries that don't have the regulation that the EU has. So really what we're doing is just shipping the problem to someone else. That's all we're doing with the plastic bottles when you put them in the recycling. And of course, fly tipping is still a problem. We still see our plastic bottles on the beaches, on the roadside. If you go out for a walk, you'll see them. I walk quite a lot, even in Gozo, and I just see plastic bottles and all sorts of stuff. When the fires happened here in Gozo earlier on in the year, it was really interesting because one of the biggest smells on the fires was burning plastic. And then once you could see all the fields clear and just sort of all black from the burning, what you could see is cans, the remnants of some plastic bottles, you could see glass, you could see all the rubbish exposed just lying around in the fields, which was quite interesting. So fly tipping is again quite a problem. So if we didn't use plastic bottles in the first place, and that really is the whole point of exposing the life cycle of a plastic bottle, is to take some thought and say, well, if we didn't use a plastic bottle, none of this would happen. And that really is the answer to it. It's not recycling. It's not even training people to throw them away properly. It's not using them in the first place, which is the key. We also see our plastic bottles in our marine pollution, especially here in Malta. We see them in the sea. There's been some interesting research done by Zibel, for instance, on measuring the amount of plastics, microplastics we find on the beaches. So you sit down on the sand. If you ever just run your fingers through the sand when you're sitting on the beach, you will see how much microplastic there is there. It's in the water. It's being ingested by fish, by livestock, by birds. Animals are being killed because they wrap themselves up in all sorts of plastic, which includes not just bottles, but also netting. Plastics that's particularly brightly coloured just look like food to a lot of animals. And it's happening we know it's happening. Even without the research, we know because we've seen it. How many times have you been to the beach and you're just sitting there and a plastic bottle floats by? I know it's happened to me lots of times. So we see this. If we didn't use them, then this wouldn't happen. So microplastics, as I mentioned, there's a lot of research going on in microplastics. It's found in our water system. It's therefore in the seawater. It therefore goes through the reverse osmosis plant, and it ends up in our tap water. And we drink it if we do not use a filter such as this, which filters out all the microplastics. Also, a lot of research has been done about the amount of microplastics in plastic bottled water. There is no regulation about this currently. However, the EU is picking up and marking it as a concern. There's research being done in what happens when you ingest microplastics in your body. The research currently suggests that we have 5 grams per week of microplastics from our food and from our water. If you drink plastic bottled water or water from plastic bottles, it stands to reason that there will be microplastics in there. So if you've joined us live and you've got any questions, please do put them in the comment box. Be happy to answer them for you on this or any other subject to do with tap water. And if you want a demo of the product, that's the same as well. And you can join us live every day from Monday to Friday at 10 a.m. and also catch all the replays on YouTube. So what eventually happens to a lot of plastic? Not all of it. WasteServe are doing a much better job at recycling. Last year, they recycled something like 26 million plastic bottles out of the 200 million plastic bottles that we use. That's probably about 10%. What happens to the rest? Well, if it doesn't actually reach the landfill, even if you leave it on beaches or someone leaves it on a beach or in the country, eventually it might reach the landfill. And then we try and manage the landfill. And interestingly enough, we're trying to manage the leachate, which is the horrible liquid that sinks down after the landfill's been rained on, which then eventually gets into your soil and groundwater. And they try and prevent that by managing the landfill as well as possible. And that is a huge job they have to do. And in the, you know, I do mention WasteServe quite a lot. I'm not blaming them at all. They're doing their job. It's us. We create the waste. It's you and me. We have a choice with plastic bottles. And that's why I think it's important that if we remember the life cycle, it's so easy just to pick up a plastic bottle and use it. But if we remember the whole of that history of the life cycle and the CO2 emissions and the pollution, then every plastic bottle that we did not use is a huge advantage and a gain for us here in Malta as well as the planet in general. And as far as drinking water is concerned, when you have something like a tap water filter such as this, and probably a good idea if I put the casing in it, inside here, this is the filter, the water goes through here, comes out through here, and it's not filtered. Switch it like that, and there's a filter in here that is removing 100 different contaminants from your water and leaving you with great tasting drinking water. So I can see we've got a comment here. This is Dylan. Hi, Dylan. When buying a new, thank you for joining us. When buying a new cartridge, do you have to throw away the first few litres of water because at first my filtered water had a bad taste after the taste improved? When using an Echo Pro, for instance, so you're replacing the Eco Pro cartridge. Let me just remove that from the screen. Okay, so when you're replacing this, it's best to run the water for about 30 seconds to a minute. And then one of the things to check is that inside your casing, not one of those, that's a very old casing. Inside your casing, there is a seal. And it's really important that this seal is in the bottom of the filter. So you can see there, around here, there is a silicone seal. So if that silicone seal has become dislodged when you changed your other filter and it's stuck to the top here, for instance, and you threw it away by accident, then it won't be filtering properly without this filter here. These are actually normally grey. This is an old one. I think I must have mislaid my new casing, so I apologise for that. This is actually an old one, but there is a silicone seal inside there that you can probably see just round the hole. There is a silicone seal in there. That's really important to have. So if you get a bad taste after you change the filtered water, 99% of time, that is because you have lost the seal. So just let us know and we'll be able to send you a new one. But yes, normally 30 seconds, so that's probably a couple of litres. And again, it might depend on the area, you might have to run it through. Certainly when the filter's all wet and in use, then you'll find it starts to act more efficiently. When it's drier, it might not be running at 100% efficiency. I hope that answers your question, Dylan. If you've got any follow-up questions, just add another comment. And thank you, I really appreciate having those questions. So if anyone, I can see there's a few people online, thank you for joining us. This week will be Monday to Friday. We have a feast on Thursday, but I will be live. In fact, we're doing a new product launch on Thursday to celebrate the feast. So we'll be live at 10 o'clock on Thursday, and you are welcome to join us then. If you've got any other questions, great, Dylan, you're going to check your seal inside the filter and just let me know. You can send us a WhatsApp. So if you are looking for support or help, WhatsApp is a really good way to contact us, as well as Facebook Messenger and also by email. But if you send a WhatsApp, especially with a picture, that really helps us diagnose any difficulties you're having and offer a solution straight away. So thank you for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to have you here. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and then we'll make the recordings available. All of those you'll be able to see on tapwater.mt/live, and you can see all the different segments of the different sort of things that we get asked. And we try and record those, and then we also put them in the FAQs, which you can get by going to tapwater.mt/help. So once again, thank you for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And in the meantime, do let us know if you've got any more questions. Let me just take that banner off first. That's super. Thank you very much for joining us today.